In this week's Office Politics, we talk with our own Martin Bashir. This morning, we talk about the tenor in the country right now and what he calls contempt for the president by his political opponents. But I began by asking if the president's new policy on immigration will be a game changer as we head toward November.
Oh, I think it's huge. You have to compare the Republican position, which is confused, multifactorial, multi-resolutional, so they have different ideas. You have a DREAM Act that Marco Rubio was sponsoring that John Boehner didn't like. You have others who suggest that any kind of resolution is amnesty, and yet there's this huge problem of the reality of demographics. And what the president has done by offering what I think everybody would agree is a humane act. In fact, the statistics, I think, suggest in a recent poll that 63% of the population welcome this as an action. So I think it is important. Having said that, I still think that this election is being defined by money and the power of it. I have a secret admiration for what they're doing because it's amazing. And if you add their discipline with the vast amount of money, I think that the president's decision on immigration and illegal aliens, or the children of illegal immigrants, I don't think is going to be as forceful a fact as the money and the power of the Republicans.
You and I were talking before the interview officially started about just the tenor in this country and how, frankly, disgusted we are by a lot of it. And you were really upset about the president being interrupted in the Rose Garden last week.
I think that this particular president has been subject to consistent contempt by his political opponents. I don't mean consistent differences of opinion, I mean contempt. So Governor Jan Brewer meets him as he lands in Arizona and points her finger into his face. He delivers a speech to a joint session of Congress, and Joe Wilson shouts out, "You lied." And then we have an individual on a single day pass joining the press corps. Quite clearly, the president had laid out what he was going to do. We all knew that the president was going to speak, and it wasn't an open press conference. And as is the tradition, people throw questions as he finishes. Well, it was quite clear that he hadn't finished. He was speaking. Yeah. And again, there was that attempt to do that. And I was talking to Congressman Elijah Cummings on the day it happened. He was here in New York on set. And it's difficult because for an African-American congressman to say this is about race would be immediately deemed as predictable and dismissed by many critics. And yet it's hard for us to understand what exactly this president has done to provoke the kind of contempt that he's received. I mean, did Richard Nixon, who was responsible for one of the most corrupt periods of a presidency in the history of the office, was he ever shouted out and told, "You lied"? Did he ever have anyone point their finger in his face? I mean, it's horrendous. And there is a cascading effect, I think, because that kind of disregard for the office of the president legitimatizes other people being just as contemptuous to others. So I think it sets such an appalling tone for all of us. Why do we have to behave like that? And yet, if people see the president being treated like that, especially young people, well, then all bets are off. You can do as you like.
And this picture here, who's running? And why are they running?
That was my best time. I did a 5K in New York for the Susan G. Komen Foundation, which I've run every year. And I did 19 minutes 43 seconds, which for an old man, that was when I was 45. It's not too bad. I actually had torn my hamstring, so I had a big strapping on it.
I was wondering what that was, and you ran with
I did.
That?
Well, I was sort of
was that smart?
I was improving, and I was feeling better, but I really wanted to do it. I was in agony and torture for about a month after that.
He's all better now. Speaking of running, we're going to move just a little bit here. Monday, Martin's show moves to its new time, weekdays at 4 p.m. Eastern here on MSNBC.